according to. And it is Thursday morning. We're winding down in the month of October. We have attained the 19th day. Moving forward here, expecting ghosts and goblins as we approach the end of the month. And that's always a wonderful experience for all of us. The little guys, the kids are definitely always up for trick-or-treats. And it's just turning into a very lovely time of the year here. How are things up north there, Barret?
It's gorgeous. It's gorgeous. The sun is out. The crabapple tree is blooming, not blooming, but the apples are on it, bright red. And yeah, I think it's supposed to get up close to 70 today again. And tomorrow they said maybe 76. So I'm like, ooh, it's like a little more blast of summer here.
Yeah, and you know what's going to happen, and I'm predicting, is it will hit the first few days of November, and then boom, we'll have Indian summer, and we'll have more of this extended balmy weather before we get slammed. So, but anyway, we are continuing with the Song of Prayer, the pamphlet from the Course in Miracles, and we've been examining this for a couple of weeks now, and we're getting ready to start winding it down over the next couple of editions that we do of The Miracle Within. But as far as what we have learned to date, the universal concept in the material world of what prayer is down on your hands and knees screaming, "Jesus, save me." And from the Song of Prayer, we've got a whole different understanding, a whole different comprehension of what prayer actually is. And learning that prayer is a silent process is kind of eye-opening, and it causes one to stop and reevaluate what you've been doing when you've been trying to reach out to God.
Yeah, I mean, as you're saying, Chris, we're really learning that prayer is not a prayer for something. Prayer is actually a recognition of what you already have. And what do we already have? We already have our connection to the divine truth. And so, yeah, we're here in this last section of the last chapter of this pamphlet, and we're talking about the holiness of healing. And we've, in previous weeks, talked about sort of the false ideas of healing, which is really trying to fix up this world, trying to fix up the body, and make it important, make it really what we are. And we're learning that the healing ultimately is always of the mind. And as we come into this state of deeper truth within, that we can't help but feel happy and peaceful, regardless of what's showing up on the screen of our life. So, yeah, I'm going to just jump right in and start with the first paragraph here. How holy are the healed, for in their sight their brothers share their healing and their love, bringers of peace, the Holy Spirit's voice, through whom he speaks for God, whose voice he is, such are God's healers. They but speak for him and never for themselves. They have no gifts but those they have from God. And these they share because they know that this is what he wills. They are not special. They are holy. They have chosen holiness and given up all separate dreams of special attributes through which they can bestow unequal gifts on those less fortunate. Their healing has restored their wholeness so they can forgive and join the song of prayer in which the healed sing of their union and their thanks to God. So really here, this last section so much is like I don't know, it's like an epic, the word is paean, I forget how you pronounce that, P-E-A-N, paean, whatever. It's sort of like this epic song, really, as he says, the song of prayer. It's the beautiful ending of this whole section where he just talks about the wonder of being in this state of joy and being in the state of what we call the real world, which is the last step before our awakening. And it's a really happy place. It's a place where there is just joy, there is just truth. We've already relinquished all fear, and so what do we have to do but just share that love that's within? So sounds like pretty good work if you can get it.
Uh, right, and I think the thing that really stood out for me in this paragraph was alluding to the idea that if we want to pray for somebody else and we're trying to put some kind of special order into that, you have an uncle or an aunt or somebody that says, would you pray for me? I've got, cancer or whatever. Then all of a sudden we find ourselves in those situations where we're praying what we believe to be a very important prayer that is going to help the other person. And when we look at it from the level of the bottom rung of the ladder, it becomes quite obvious that we don't know what they need for their healing. We have no idea. So that's why you really have to go into it without any thoughts, any ideas, any motivations, any urges, and just, bring that person into your consciousness as you step into the silence. So that's how we pray for each other. If you go in there and say, oh God, I need to have this guy healed of cancer, even though what nobody knows is that he's also got, left ventricle of the heart plugged up. You really, you don't know what's going on. And I think that's what you have to really be able to pull out of a statement or of a paragraph like this, is that your obligation is just to step into the fullness of the Christ consciousness in that state of prayer, and know that everybody that you're connected to is going to be healed in some way by that ongoing effort that you put into it.
Yeah. And it's really a hard one because it fits in with, excuse me, that line in the workbook where Jesus says, I do not perceive my own best interests. No one likes to hear that. I mean, everyone thinks that they know what's best for them. And again, in this example you're talking about, seems pretty clear what's in your uncle's best interest, But again, as you're saying, Chris, we can't really know. We can't really know. And that's a hard one for us to deal with. So it puts us in this strange position where we start to learn to pray for just what is in the highest good, whatever that may be, whether we're consciously aware of what that highest good looks like or not. And really the highest good is all of us awakening from this dream of form. And the way that we awaken can be very different. Someone may use the curse or the challenge of cancer to be the fuel for their own awakening. So how could you say that that's bad or wrong then, if that's the purpose that they're giving to it? So it's really impossible to judge any situation, and in a way, again, that feels hard. But what it really means is that we're free. We're free from having to judge anything. We can't know what anything means, and so why should we try? I mean, every time we think we know, how often does it turn out later that we're wrong? And why do we put ourselves through that? Why do we put ourselves through that when we don't have to? Because we have a voice within us, we have a spirit within us that does know what is in the highest good and will gently lead us to everything that we need to do if we just give over our own ideas about how things should be.
Yeah, that can become a tremendous source of conflict and angst and frustration when you operate from the level of the ego. So you have to keep yourself alert to that seduction, because the ego is always there, right at the doorstep, and it's always offering you all these incredible opinions and decisions and yada yada yada. But the truth is, it's just keeping you trapped in your little cage on your little wheel, running around and around and around and not going anywhere. So picking up with the second paragraph here, says, as witness to forgiveness, aid to prayer, and the effect of mercy, truly taught, healing is blessing. Nice line there. Healing is blessing. That gives us a real direction to put our efforts in, is to bless everybody that we encounter, to bless every situation we encounter, because that is the process of healing. That's the process of putting things back on track. And the world responds in quickened chorus through the voice of prayer. Forgiveness shines its merciful reprieve upon each blade of grass and feathered wing, and all the living things upon the earth. Fear has no haven here, for love has come in all its holy oneness. Time remains only to let the last embrace of prayer rest on the earth an instant, as the world is shined away. This instant is the goal of all true healers, whom the Christ is taught to see his likeness and to teach like him. So we're once again being urged to follow that discipline and that direction that Jesus laid out for us. And I think apart from the Beatitudes, I think most of what Jesus was doing was just a preparatory thing for that final period there where we had the crucifixion and then the resurrection. And I think that that's what we're all going through. And I think that Jesus was trying to get us to look at that part of who we imagine ourselves to be does have to be released. And it doesn't have to be a bloody crucifixion, but generally it is a struggle for us to stop being Joe or Bill or Larry or Mary or whatever. But within that process, then we can actually rejoin Jesus, and he can lead us into the Christ, and we can have a life that has meaning and purpose, and then our commitment to blessing everything that we encounter has some kind of depth, that has an impact. So it really is an interesting thing that always loops around. The only way that we really have any real power is through releasing this sense of an identity that we have crafted out of illusion and fear. And that's where the power lies.
Yeah, well, a lot of really good points there. And I think one of the ones that jumped out at me is this fear we have of giving up our identity as the person we think we are, as the individual we seem to be. And I know as I've gone through this work, I have that same fear, right? The fear of giving up this idea that Barret is what I am. And, you know, a lot of times past lives come up for me as I do this sort of healing work. And I get the sense of like letting go of that whole thread of individuality, like this whole idea of personhood. It's so deeply entrenched in us that as we work on releasing it, a part of us is going to fight like hell. And that's the ego, right? Because the ego's range is from suspicious to vicious. So there are going to be times where it is going to kick up its feet and it's going to scratch and claw and try its darndest to get us to back down. I remember maybe in the first year or two of working with the Course, I sort of just had this inner vision. And the vision was of setting the book on fire, setting A Course in Miracles on fire. And it was pretty clear right away that was a vision from the ego, the part of me that didn't want, it knew that working with this course was going to be its end, and it didn't want me to keep going. So this energy of fear and resistance showed up. So I think it's very normal for all of us to have this, and I think if actually we don't have some resistance to this work and we've been working with it for a while, we might want to look at how we're working with it, because in my experience, anyone who spends any amount of time with this at some point really resists it and really struggles with it. So just know that if that is your experience, it doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. It might mean that you're right on track and your ego is just screaming its head off because it's afraid of being undone.
Exactly. And the thing we have to realize is that the ego is mostly bluster. it is very good at projecting worst possible outcome images into our mind. And it's always got something that is designed to back us into a corner and reduce us to nothing. So we really have to be able to look at that litany of different ideas that the ego is going to project into our mind about, death, doom, and disaster. And again, that's where the resource of prayer becomes very, very evident, because as we clear the mind of these toxic images and ideas and allow that peace to flow across the surface of the mind, we step into a different region. We step into a different state of identity. And that's really the whole point of the Course in Miracles, is to get us to look at identity and to be able to claim the truth of who we actually are.
Well, the words that jumped out at me from what you were saying were death, doom, and disaster. I was like, oh, those are like the 3Ds. And then I had the thought, well, that's actually what this 3D world is all about: death, doom, and disaster. And then I thought, well, all these threes, because we were just talking about how actually this is almost exactly 3 years to the day from the first recording that you and I have done. So that's pretty remarkable too. But it reminds me of even one other thing, which is an experience I had when I was living in California. Back in 2009, I started working with the Course a few years before that, and I was actually coming back from the Foundation for A Course in Miracles, which is, in my mind, the premier organization for teaching what the Course is saying. Obviously, Ken Wapnick's teachings are at the heart of that organization, even after he's passed a few years ago. So I was driving, I was at a seminar, it was a 3-day seminar or something like that, and I was driving back to the San Diego area where I lived, and as I'm driving down the highway, these rolling hills of kind of central California, all of a sudden, everything I saw turned into 2D paper animation. So the hills were 2D, the sky was 2D. It was still moving like a paper animation would, but it was all paper, it was all flat. And the kind of thing that went along with this experience was a very deep knowing that I didn't have anything to worry about because nothing really was happening. And so it was like this sharing of the deeper truths that we're espousing and a course, but it was this knowing of it, and on such a profound level, I just felt so free and so joyful, and I just kept driving down the road, and all of it looked like paper. And it lasted for maybe 2 or 3 minutes, and then it sort of faded from my awareness, and the kind of normal world came back to my awareness, but the freedom stayed with me in the sense like, wow, there's really nothing to worry about. Every problem I seem to have here in this world is as fake as a paper animation is, and it was a big load off.
Yeah, it's wonderful when we have those opportunities to channel, I guess you could say, the clear voice from the Holy Spirit, because that's what you described is a gift that was offered to you from the Holy Spirit to get that insight, to see the truth as it actually is and how flat this material world actually is. So that's that's one of those moments that you can go back and reference as you continue to move forward with life and continue to gain from it. And it's the beauty of it. There's always more to gain.
Yeah, and that's why this course requires repetition. We're repeating a lot of these ideas. If anyone has been watching all these videos since number 1 and you're at 130 something, then you know that we repeat a lot of these concepts as we talk about this. But that's not it's not a problem. It's actually a feature, right? Because it's in hearing these ideas over and over that they sink in. And similarly, every time I share the story or even think about this experience that I had, it helps it sink in more deeply. So we keep going, and it just goes deeper and deeper. It's really a reflection too of the holographic nature of the Course itself. It sort of cycles around and just keeps going deeper and deeper. And even if we're reading the same words, all of a sudden we're like, wow, I don't think I ever saw that before. And it's amazing at how everyone I know who studies the Course has that experience, where sections that they know are not new to them, but all of a sudden they're new, and they're like, wow.
Absolutely, yes. It is ever renewing itself within us.
Yeah. So speaking of reading it, I think I'll keep on going here too. Think what it means to help the Christ to heal. Can anything be holier than this? God thanks his healers, for he knows the cause of healing is himself, his love, his Son, restored as his completion and returned to share with him creation's holy joy. Do not ask partial healing, nor accept an idol for remembrance of him whose love has never changed and never will. You are as dear to him as is the whole of his creation, for it lies in you as his eternal gift. What need have you for shifting dreams within a sorry world? Do not forget the gratitude of God. Do not forget the holy grace of prayer. Do not forget forgiveness of God's Son. Beautiful stuff here. Again, it's sort of just like this beautiful expression of love. And one word in particular jumped out at me, which is the word remembrance. And it's actually spelled here, not the dictionary spelling, but remembrance. It has that E, extra E. And I've heard Ken talk about that, about how it's sort of Jesus's poetic license that he takes with words a bit, for the purpose really of keeping the meter. You know, a lot of times as we're reading this, we don't catch that there's an actual poetic iambic pentameter rhythm to it all. But you know, sometimes we do, and it just really helps it all flow. Because poetry is interesting as it opposes prose, in that it sort of can take us into an experience. The actual sense of the words and the rhythm of them can actually lead us into a sort of opening and awareness. And in my mind, you know, the fact that so much of this book is in iambic pentameter is really a testament to the poetic nature of the teaching, and that it really brings us into that experience that's really beyond even what the words are saying. It's the experience that we're looking for.
Yeah, I think that it was very clear that, you know, to Jesus when he was bringing forth the Course, that the way to approach people is almost a primordial beat. And iambic pentameter is basically the rhythm of the heart. So you're getting this pulse, this heartbeat in the flow of the words. And that causes you or allows you to absorb much more deeply. The thing I thought was interesting in this particular section is the idea that you're probably going to have certain things offered to you as a substitution for real healing. In other words, you've got, you know, a bad case of eczema, and all of a sudden it appears that the eczema has gone. That's that substitution game that the ego is very good at offering us, where we seem to be getting the healings that we think that we want. And the fact is, it's just, you know, well, we'll clear your skin up, but then, you know, we'll, in 3 months, you will have melanoma. So it's just, you know, this idiotic back and forth that we encounter. And the truth is, what we want to go for is that divine union. That's the healing. And if you're identifying healing as being a specific item on your list of things that you need to achieve, then you're missing the point of what the Course is offering to you.
It's a beautiful teaching. Yeah, that ultimate healing is always about us coming into awareness of our oneness with God. And there may be seeming miracles or physical healings that'll occur along the way. But if we don't let ourselves overly focus on those, then we can keep our eye on the ball, and we can keep moving towards that state of oneness, which is the answer to every problem. And obviously, when we achieve it as deeply as Jesus, we know that pain is impossible. He wasn't actually hurt when he was nailed to the cross, because he knew that the body was not what he was. And that's really the goal for all of us, not that we need to be nailed to a cross, but that we can get to a place of actually psychological invulnerability and an inability to feel pain, because we have healed in our mind the very root that leads to pain, which is always the idea of separation from God. And letting that go is the answer. That is what the atonement principle in the Course is all about.
And it's a journey that we are taking in our consciousness to eventually get out of our consciousness, and that is the irony of the whole thing. Everything is a paradox on that bottom rung of the ladder.
I was going to try to make a joke. Instead of a paradox, I'd have a pair of socks, and then if I need to iron them with my irony, I don't know.
It's kind of like my dogma just ran over your karma, or my karma just ran over your dogma. One of the other. So
I always like that one.
Anyway, well, it was a great opportunity to gain more insight with the Course, and I thank you, Barret. And we will reassemble in 1 week with even more enlightened thoughts to offer you.
Yeah, and I do need to head out, but I wanted to mention before I do that on November 5th, you and I will be in person together with 3 other Course in Miracles teachers here in the Chicago area in Glenview. That's Sunday afternoon from 1 to 5 p.m. It'd be great to have you there, and details are on my website at barretthadeen.com, and I think they're on themiraclewithin.org as well. Is that right, Chris?
Yes, absolutely. It's listed, and we encourage you to think about joining us for an amazing Sunday adventure.
It'd be great to have you there, and this was a really great time together today, Chris.
Yes, it actually was, and I will chat with you very soon, I'm sure.
Look forward to it. All right, have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.